Of course, college students are not the only Americans negatively affected by society's excessive use of alcohol. These days, alcohol abuse is widespread, and its negative effects on the health and safety of our populace is staggering. The public's use of booze imposes massive personal and financial burdens, from lost productivity to hospitalizations to criminal justice expenditures. Alcohol use and abuse costs this nation close to $200 billion annually, and perhaps more. The most frequently cited figures estimating the overall cost of alcohol abuse in this country come from a pair of National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism reports entitled Economic Costs of Alcohol Abuse in the United States, published in 1992 and in 1998. Unfortunately, these reports were not updated during the entire tenure of the George W. Bush administration, perhaps because they were spending all of their anti-drug funding on producing anti-marijuana ads. So we can only assume, based on the approximately 25% increase in overall costs from 1992, $148 billion, to 1998, $184.6 billion, that today's alcohol-related costs are well above the 1998 total. Regardless of whether the current annual cost of alcohol use in our society is $150 billion, $185 billion, or somewhere over $200 billion, these reports indicate that there are a variety of factors contributing to this gargantuan total. The most significant factor is lost productivity due to alcohol-related illness. The economic costs reports provide the following explanation of how this figure was achieved. Determining lost productivity due to alcohol or drug dependence involves comparing the expected value of earnings for an individual who is alcohol or drug dependent with his or her expected earnings in the absence of the alcohol or drug disorder. The difference between these two values is the estimated impact of the disorder on the individual, and the sum of these estimated impacts across all individuals with alcohol or drug disorders is the estimated national total impact. In 1998, researchers estimated that alcohol-related productivity loss imposed an estimated financial toll on the nation of more than $86 billion. Similarly, these studies also measured lost productivity for persons incarcerated for alcohol-related crimes, a factor that cost more than $9 billion in 1998. On top of these totals, researchers included additional costs associated with the medical consequences of alcohol consumption, essentially health care costs, which totaled more than $15 billion in 1998. Another $36.5 billion was attributable to lost future earnings because of premature deaths, $8.6 billion of which were due to deaths in alcohol-related motor vehicle accidents. Worldwide, alcohol is estimated to be responsible for 4% of all premature deaths. Alcohol-related crime also imposes significant costs upon society. A study by the U.S. Department of Justice's Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention estimated the cost of alcohol attributable violent crime by juveniles, defined as those under age 21, at nearly $30 billion in 1996. More than 3/4 of this total was attributable to the victim's pain and lost quality of life. Direct medical costs were responsible for another $1.1 billion. Certainly this figure would be significantly higher if it included violent crimes committed by individuals of all ages. Of course, what makes these figures all the more problematic is that our government drives people toward the use of alcohol and away from cannabis, despite indisputable evidence that marijuana would impose fewer costs on society. Let's start with the approximately $28 billion in future earnings lost because of premature deaths due to alcohol, not including motor vehicle accidents. Since marijuana is not adversely associated with mortality, we could theoretically reduce this number if adults were allowed, or perhaps even encouraged, to use marijuana instead of alcohol. Similarly, marijuana use is not associated with an increased likelihood of violent behavior, so we could expect that a shift from the use of alcohol to marijuana would potentially lead to a reduction in alcohol-related violent crime as well. With respect to medical costs, marijuana's impact is extremely limited compared to alcohol. While it is difficult to find studies comparing the direct healthcare costs attributable to booze and pot in the United States, one study in Canada, where marijuana is used at rates comparable to those in America, determined that annual alcohol-related healthcare costs were 45 times greater than marijuana-related healthcare costs. According to the study, in 2002, healthcare costs stemming from the use of alcohol totaled $3.3 billion, compared to just $73 million for marijuana. With respect to lost productivity attributable to marijuana use, it is difficult to find a figure to compare to the $86 billion price tag attributed to alcohol-related illness. That is because the description of drug dependence used by the federal government to calculate the figure for productivity loss due to drug-related illness, which was estimated at $23 billion in 1998, is defined as whether an individual had used marijuana or cocaine more than 100 times in his lifetime. In other words, despite the federal government's vigorous anti-marijuana efforts between 1998 and 2008, drug czars McCaffrey and Walters somehow never managed to produce a study showing that marijuana use alone has a significant impact on the public's productivity. In fact, when Walters ONDCP published a booklet entitled Marijuana Myths and Facts, The Truth Behind 10 Popular Misconceptions, with 22 pages of text loaded with 83 footnotes, it included just one minor reference to productivity. Marijuana also harms society by causing lost productivity in business. Interestingly, the Drug Czar's office provided no reference to affirm this allegation. Beyond the pure financial burden to society, alcohol, in some situations, can also have a negative impact on the public's quality of life. Here, we are not referring to hangovers or to family discord, but the personal discomfort that is often caused by the drinking of others. For example, there have been many articles written in recent years about the problems stemming from overindulgence in alcohol prior to and during sporting events. In one instance, in 2004, a fan and his 9-year-old son were repeatedly harassed during a Colorado Rockies game by drunken fans who intentionally spilled beer on them. When this same fan filed a lawsuit against the Rockies for failing to discourage excessive drinking at the stadium, the team flippantly replied in its filing, "The possibility that beer might be spilled by spectators in large sporting events is an inherent risk." The National Football League, on the other hand, appears to fully recognize the problem of fan drunkenness and is taking it far more seriously. Consider this excerpt from a 2008 Washington Post article. At the behest of Commissioner Roger Goodell, all 32 teams have announced a fan conduct policy in an attempt to make their stadiums more fan-friendly. Goodell said he believes fans should be able to watch without being subjected to abusive language, obscene gestures, and other forms of rude behavior. In fact, in order to curb such rowdy behavior, some NFL teams have even gone so far as to ban alcohol sales during games. Of course, by emphasizing these negative behaviors, we are not dismissing the fact that booze, particularly when consumed in moderation, also frequently serves to improve one's quality of life. Whether it is wine at a dinner party or cocktails at happy hour. Rather, we are simply acknowledging that alcohol is also routinely associated with unpleasant behaviors in a manner that marijuana use is not.